Sydney Olson, welcome to Invisible Impact, a post-concussion podcast. We are so excited to have you here. Sydney is a professional parkour athlete and stunt woman, and you have a really special concussion story to share too, which we'll get into. But I think to start, like I was saying, I've watched so many of your videos. I am so obsessed with your talent and just fascinated by your career. And I think it would be really helpful to our audience if you could just start explain to us kind of how you got into parkour, maybe what it is if people don't know. And people know what a stunt woman is, but I think a lot of parkour people might not know. So if you could just give us a little background, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. First of all, you are so sweet and your energy is just so amazing. And I'm really grateful to be here and be a guest on your podcast and get to kind of like talk about concussions because that was such a passion of mine for a while. And let's see. So with parkour, I grew up as a gymnast and that was a very kind of strict background.
Yeah.
They're very intense gymnastics coaches and I got really good at what I was doing and I was super passionate about it. But I think over time, it started to drain me a little bit. So I quit when I was about 14. And a few years later, I was coaching gymnastics and these guys came in to the gym and they were doing all these weird flips that I'd never seen before. And I was like, what is this? You know, this was not anything I had ever learned in gymnastics. And they would like take it outside and do it on concrete too. So one day I kind of joined in with them and was like, this is really cool. I can just do whatever I want and no one's going to tell me that it's right or wrong or I need to point my toes or straighten my legs.
Right.
I can just do whatever I want with it. So then just kind of fell in love with the sport. And basically, if you don't know what parkour is, there's so many different definitions. A lot of times you'll see people kind of like jumping on the rooftops. That's part of it. That's not necessarily what I do with it. I do more of what you would call free running. So free running is kind of like navigating sort of an obstacle course, but adding your own style into it, like flips and whatever else you might want to do with that. And yeah, I just absolutely love it. I've been training parkour for about 15 years now, and it has brought me many places around the world as a competitive athlete. And then it also helped me get into the career of stunts. So for those who don't know, people in the stunt world, kind of what they do is they double an actor. So you'll see an actor on camera and then they go and do something like fall down the stairs. Most of the time, that is not the actor doing it. It is their stunt double. So it's someone that can really take a hard hit and they can fight, they can, do flips, wire work, all of the above. And that's just kind of what my job is. So it's super crazy. And I got into that basically by meeting a couple stunt guys that were also in the parkour world at a competition. And then the next week, they just called me up and got me on my first ever job on a music video, just doing some parkour. And then I moved down to LA and it ended up being like my entire life for the next, 10 or so years.
What a crazy ride.
Yeah,
I'm sure when you were in middle school, you were not thinking like, I'm going to go do stunts. I'm going to be a professional parkour athlete.
No, not at all. But I did. It's so funny though, because like when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor. And I remember telling my mom, like, oh, I want to be an actor, but I want to do my own stunts. And then it's funny because now I'm a stunt woman that sometimes does her own acting.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, but talk to me about when you say the competitions. What does that look like? Like what? I know that's probably hard to explain.
Yeah, it can
we can show some video clips over this probably for people to really see it. But what sort of things are you being judged on or competing with others on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when you do a competition, you're normally given like a course. So maybe it has a starting point, maybe it has an ending point, or maybe it's just like in this general area, you have to create like what we call a line. So it's getting from like point A to B or whatever. And you are basically adding in your own style of movement, doing whatever moves you want to do, but you're being judged on difficulty. So that's like, how hard the moves are, execution, how well you land them, flow, like how well it connects together, overall impression, like are people excited watching this? Is it innovative? And then creativity also, is it innovative? Is it different? Like, is it this own person's style? So that's basically what a competition kind of is. Okay. And the most exciting one that I used to compete in was the Red Bull Art of Motion, which was always in Santorini, Greece or Italy or something really cool. So yeah.
That's so cool. Kind of reminds me of like skateboarding a little bit.
Yeah, it sort of is. I would say that they have a lot of crossover.
Okay. So you mentioned Santorini, which is like kind of a very amazing segue into talking about concussion, because I know, unfortunately, when you were at one of those competitions that you did have an injury. To kind of like jump into your concussion past, like definitely don't need to like walk us through every single concussion that you've ever had. But if you want to think back to maybe the one or two that had the biggest impact of your life, and of course we'll talk about post-concussion syndrome, I'm sure it won't take people that much of their imagination to figure out how you could get a concussion doing what you kind of just described. Seems like, could be dangerous, could have a lot of risk. Maybe walk us through, if you feel comfortable, kind of like how the injury happened for you in Greece.
Absolutely. I want to first preface this by saying I've been very lucky, and I'm going to knock on wood when I say
Okay,
that.
yep, we're doing it.
I feel like I've been pretty lucky with my career in how many head hits that I've taken. There hasn't been too many, but I would say there's been two that were quite devastating in the sense that they actually took a lot of time to heal from.
Okay.
So the first one is actually, it did happen in Santorini. And at this point, I was going to this competition, the Red Bull Art of Motion. It was my second time competing in it. And the first time I had competed, I got second place. And I remember I was coming back from my revenge. I really was super excited to win this one. And I knew for a fact, like, this year it's going to happen. Like, there was no way. If I got to compete, there was no way I wasn't going to win. And so 2 days before the competition, we had a mat set up, and I was doing a move that I know how to do all the time. And it's something that I can land every single time I was doing it, but I was using a mat so that I'm not like, using my legs too much before the actual competition day. I basically just want to do it so it takes away some of the impact. So I land the move, and then I am walking off the mat, and I tripped on the mat.
No.
Yeah, and then there was this giant staircase that was about 6 foot drop, and I literally fell backwards. I tried to save myself, and I landed on my head from 6 feet
Not
up.
even from doing a move.
No, it was
Literally
from tripping.
walking.
Yes, it was so embarrassing.
Did you black out?
I did. Yeah, that was the only time I've ever completely blacked out, I believe. I don't think I've ever experienced something quite like that, where I passed out from an actual head impact. It was weird, like all this white light kind of surrounded, and I was just like, oh, and then I remember coming awake, and I was pissed. Like, I was so mad.
Yes.
And there was so many people around me, like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you okay? And it was just kind of overwhelming. And I remember that I immediately started crying because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can compete. And that was like the first thing that came up. But I think it said a lot because at the time I wasn't like super emotional about that kind of stuff, but it showed like how quickly, like, oh, she really did hit her head. And it was kind of like this panic. I would say that was like the first thing that came about.
And the sobbing. I don't know about if that, like, as a concussion sign, we know that like over emotionality can be a thing too. And it's like, wait a second, I would never cry this much. What's happening? I don't feel like myself.
Exactly, because I'm someone that has taken several injuries. I've broken my hand in several places and did not cry when that happened. But like, yeah, it was just getting hit really hard, I think, just brought something out of me in that moment. So that was really scary. That was like the first thing that I noticed.
And what did it look like in the weeks and kind of like months after that?
Yeah, so I remember I was taken to the hospital, and of course, like, it's in Greece. And also, I'm sure you are very aware of what they do at the hospital. And a lot of times they don't actually want to, they don't want to diagnose you with a concussion because it's more paperwork. And then they have to keep you overnight and all this kind of stuff. So you're like, oh, nothing's broken in your head. You're fine. Yeah. And so I remember, it's so funny. I have a YouTube vlog somewhere of this event. And I don't know, I'll have to like link it to you. It's kind of embarrassing. But the rest of the trip, I wasn't able to find the words for things that I was normally saying. So I was like, we're at the event, and I just couldn't. It's
crazy. You have it on camera.
Yeah, I got it on camera, and it's pretty wild. And we're all out in Greece, and I'm still like trying to have a good time because I'm just out there. And that was another thing, is I thought that I could still compete anyway, and so I remember thinking in my mind like, oh, I'm still gonna compete, and completely unaware of how much damage had sort of been done. And so the day of the event, I thought I was still competing. And then they had all these people talking to me. They're like, no, you're not going to, which was like devastating. Because I thought, oh, I'm still going to win. Like,
this is my trophy.
And that was absolutely the right thing to do, because then when I tried to train again a couple weeks later, like, I was so dizzy that I just like fell over. I was like, this is insane. So the following weeks I noticed, there was like a bit of spaciness, and I had to like take my time to search for words. But what I noticed the most was that I was dizzy, and I kind of had this vertigo that I had never had before. So I had to get comfortable with this new version of me that's like, I'm normally flipping and twisting at the same time. And I definitely wasn't able to do that for a little while. And I had to slow down and actually be aware of what was going on with my health.
Right. And can you remember, or like, how would you describe what it feels like when your brain is like not working?
It's frustrating. I'd say it's really frustrating because you think that you're doing things correctly. Like you think you're saying the right things, but it's just like, why can't I find the right words? Like, why are people treating me this way? Like, why are they treating me like I'm a baby? Like, but then it's also, yeah, you just feel like suddenly you're not able to do most of what you were able to do before. And it just feels, yeah, super frustrating, I would say.
And especially as an athlete, and we hear this often with a lot of obviously concussions happening in sport. Did you feel like, okay, now what? Because like this is my work, this is my profession, this is, I'm guessing, a lot of your passion and your joy. And did it kind of leave you feeling, like maybe a little bit of an identity crisis at all?
Yeah, I would say a little bit. Luckily, it didn't last for too long around that time. I remember I did develop post-concussion syndrome, so the vertigo and some of the memory issues ended up lasting longer than I thought it would be. But I felt like during that time, I just wanted to get better. So there wasn't like too much I didn't even think about that at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to get better. I'm going to do everything I can to get better. And that was how I always viewed any sort of injury, is immediately it's like, okay, how do I fix this?
Yes.
Which sometimes is good, sometimes it's not, especially because, as you know, like concussions, they can take a while to heal. And it's not about doing more, it's actually about doing less.
Yeah, exactly. That's so wise. And when you have that mentality of like, every single day I have to be doing this therapy and then this, that, and then I have to take this mental, like every single thing has to be perfect so then I can get better. And your brain's like, joke's on you. We need 2 more months or 3 more or whatever it can be. And like, actually you just have to rest. And that can be so hard for people.
Yeah, it definitely was hard for me. And I feel like I got into training way too soon. Like back then I didn't realize like how much time you kind of need to take to rest and then sort of ease back into things like that. So if I had gone through the same thing again, I'd be a little bit more mindful about what to do. But I think back then I didn't fully understand the impact of concussions. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't fully understand that you just kind of need to ease back, like take rest and take it seriously. Like you don't need to be overstimulated all the time. And we're in this world where you just always are overstimulated. So something that I'm very mindful of now in just modern day is when I'm overstimulated and how to kind of get more grounded and just breathe and, rest and take time rather than rushing around, because I did not understand that lesson back then.
That's so important for people to hear. Like if you actually slow down, you're going to get better faster rather than continuing to push through.
Yes, exactly. So I'll tell you a little bit about the other concussion that I have.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, I must have felt it.
Yeah, we're in a flow.
Yeah, we are. The other one was quite dramatic because it left a scar on my forehead. And so this one was once again something that was just sort of a freak accident. It wasn't something that was dangerous. I was warming up a move into a foam pit. And we have at my old gym that sadly is no longer there. It was called Tempest South Bay. And we had this ladder that was by the foam pit. And I had always been like aware of this. I'm like, oh yeah, if I went super sideways, I'd smack my head or something. Yeah. So I'm just, I was always very good at avoiding it. And I was doing something called a scoot double full, which is it's kind of like a cartwheel, except you don't quite go upside down, but then you do a backflip with 2 twists in it. And I was warming this up. I was going to do it outside later that day. And so literally warming it up into the foam pit. And I had a friend there that was telling me, I think you'd get more power if you push off a little bit more with your hand. And so that's what I did. And somehow it sent me a little bit sideways. And then I remember having the thought midair, like, oh, I think I'm going to hit that pole. And then it just happened. It was like, boing. And so immediately I fall in the foam pit. And the immediate thought was like, oh no, my head, like my concussion, it's back.
Oh. And so how long was this after Santorini?
So it was like a year and a half after.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I remember I was laying in the foam pit and I just looked down and there was just blood everywhere. And I was like, oh, this is bad. And my friends looked at me and gasped. And I'm just thinking, okay, this isn't good. And I'm trying to keep calm, but like there's a lot going on around me and people are kind of freaking out and they're trying to keep calm, but it's just like so much. And so my friend was like, okay, we're going to need to go to the hospital immediately. Like you have a really big cut. Oh
my gosh.
We get into the car and I hadn't even seen it yet. And they were like, oh, don't look at it. Don't even think about how it's going to leave a like leave a scar. And I was just thinking, like, I didn't even think
I'm
about
not.
that. Yeah. So then I like pull down the mirror that they have in the car and I looked at it. And I was just like, oh shit. There was like this huge hole in my face, in my forehead. And so when we got to the hospital, I knew right away I need to be seen as soon as possible. So I'm
Yes.
actually going to be quite dramatic about this.
Yeah,
and I'm going to
good.
make a scene so that I get seen right away. And it worked. They pulled me back immediately. And I remember at the time they were already talking about plastic surgery. And they were saying, yeah, like you might want to have a plastic surgeon do this instead of us. And I was just like, no, just stitch it up now. Like, I don't care. And so they stitched it up right away. And then they asked me, it was so bizarre. They're like, would you like us to diagnose you with a concussion?
What?
And then I was like, what does that mean? Like, why? And then they said, well, because then we have to keep you overnight. I was like, oh, no.
Oh.
So I told them no. And I was like, I
gosh.
just want to go home.
Yeah. Wild to give the patient the choice.
Right? So strange. But yeah, the concussion symptoms that I had had before came back with a vengeance because it's like the front of the head and it's a little bit different. And my memory was just so bad all of a sudden.
Right away.
Right away. Like within the next couple of days, I remember a week later when I finally got the stitches out, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he lived in England and he flew in to LAX and I went to go pick him up from the airport. And I forgot where I parked my car and we spent hours looking for it. It's funny, but it's, it was not at the time. It was very sad.
Right. And talk me through then after that second big one, you're like, oh no, it's back. Like walk us through the symptoms that you were experiencing.
Yeah, so it was an interesting time in my life because I went back and I won the Red Bull Art of Motion in Italy. And so it was all of a sudden I had accomplished this really big goal that I had for many years. And I already was kind of having this weird identity crisis around what I was going to do next. And so then this happens and I'm thinking, I got to get back to training immediately. And so I rested for like a week and a half. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, was very good about making me just do very small things like, oh, we'll go for a walk and that sort of stuff. But then as soon as I could, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do like a little bit of training, a little bit. And that turned into a lot more. And that turned into like, oh, I'm not listening to my body. And then this is the craziest thing is less than a month later, I was driving home and I got into a very serious car accident. And I was stopped and the person behind me had fallen asleep at the wheel and hits me from the back going 40 miles an hour. And I felt like it was the universe saying like, hey, you're not going to slow down. We're going to make you slow down. And so all of the symptoms that I had thought went away all came back once again. And I was actually forced to rest. And so I rested for like a month and a half before I did anything again. And I was really, really grateful for that. And I was finally like learning how to actually slow down in my life and stop rushing everywhere and stop trying to like focus on the next thing and just focus on what's in front of me at hand. And I think that really, really was such a big lesson that anytime afterwards, when something like this happens, I actually listen to my body.
That's a huge lesson.
Yeah, it was massive.
And after the month and a half, did you notice any symptoms kind of lingering then?
Mostly at that point, it was more of neck pain than anything else. I think a lot of those concussion symptoms actually subsided a lot quicker since I actually was resting. And something I forgot to mention with the first one is that I got into eating like more high quality fats as well and things like salmon and blueberries and things that are really good for brain health. So I was always very on top of eating like an anti-inflammatory diet. I think just with those little changes in mind, like I was able to kind of get on top of it a little bit more quickly. I know that there's some people that haven't always had the best of luck and they end up, going years with these symptoms and they're just really horrible. But, most of it went away though. And I remember being able to get back to twisting and all that, like in my flips, but it's kind of different afterwards. Like I just remember having a lot of fear for a while more than anything else. And it took some time to sort of get back to a place where I felt like comfortable with my movement again, just in case something like that were to happen.
Right. And especially when you've been through it now so many times, you're like, I don't really ever want to feel that way again. So I'm sure it like causes you to be a little bit more cautious going into things. How during that month and a half when you were like really forced to slow down, what was like most helpful to you?
I got really into meditation. That was something that helped a lot. And I would do guided ones back then. So it was nice to like listen to someone else's voice and not having to like focus too hard, just learning how to like kind of sit there and be unfocused. And then I also got into journaling. And sometimes if I had too much of a headache, I wasn't able to do that. But it kind of helped get past a lot of that identity crisis and that kind of stuff that you were saying, is like having a better relationship with yourself. So those things were good, and it helped me be more in tune with my body so I could actually listen to what I needed to say, and to be able to truly rest and to be able to truly like move on with my life in a positive way and take the actual lesson rather than just repeating the same cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
When you talk about headaches, want to talk about that just like for a second, because I feel like it's different for everyone after concussion, but it can be a symptom that can be hard for, this podcast being called Invisible Impact, that it is invisible first off. And then it can be hard for people to understand because people are like, oh, I've had a headache. Like, just do your life. What do you mean? What do you mean you're resting? So what do you mean? How are you still not better? Like, it's just a headache. What, and you might have not had like crazy headaches, but I'm just curious your experience, or how you would describe it? Like how the feeling in your brain feels different than just like a normal headache.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I was thinking back to what it felt like, and it almost kind of makes me feel gross. Like
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, oh, like there's something wrong with my brain. Like, ew.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like, I don't know, like out of control, I guess. And the pain would be quite intense, very throbbing sort of pain. Whenever I'm at altitude, it comes back. Like the pain is so intense if I am at altitude, and I always kind of feel it more in the back of my head than anything else. And it feels like one of those pressure headaches where it's squeezing the back of my head.
Yes.
So,
I would always say like it feels like you have like a really tight baseball hat on.
Yes.
Just like when you're like, just take it off. It's like, no, it's not just a headache. Like it does feel different. And like, it's okay that people can't understand. It's kind of to your point. It's like, even if no one else is understanding what you're going through, being like, just come to the party, come to school, come do this, like just play in the game. We really need you. It's like, you have to block out that noise and just listen to yourself.
Yeah, you really do. I think, you know yourself more than anybody else. So if people are saying that, it's just, they don't understand, and rightfully so. They probably haven't had something like that happen before. If they had, then they would understand.
Right.
So I think when you're in that position, like if people are saying that, you could either try and explain it to them or not, and just really just listen to what you need in that time, and actually just take the time to rest and feel better in your body, because those can be really debilitating, and I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any other kind of debilitating symptoms that you dealt with?
I think the dizziness, like I would feel a lot of nausea, just from very basic things like getting up and walking around. I remember feeling like that for quite a while, especially after that first one that I was telling you about. I just remember kind of, feeling really nauseous for a while.
Yeah, that could be, like you said, like the like sick feeling, just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just like not in my body. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know it. I think your story is such an important one for a lot of the reasons we've already talked about, but also that you were able to go back to competition, and you seem to be doing really well now too. Like, I think that's an important story for people to hear, that like you can get better, because I know a lot of people are like just trying to grapple with if this is going to be part of their story for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I understand. And I want to send out a lot of love and compassion to the people that are currently experiencing that, because that is really scary. And it's learning to live with something new. And I think it's less about getting back to the old self and getting on with this new thing that may in some ways kind of help you if you're open to that. It helps you learn lessons to, connect with yourself deeper in a way that some people just don't understand. So, yes, I think the first thing to understand about that is that you can get better, that these symptoms can improve and they can go away, and it does take time, and you have to be very, very patient with it. But I think my first words of encouragement would be, listening to this podcast is great. I wish I would have had it as a resource back then. But I did listen to a lot of other tools about like, how to heal my symptoms naturally. I didn't want to be on all these medications to kind of help with the nausea. One thing that really helped me, as I said, was like an anti-inflammatory diet. I focused on like good fats, avocados, salmon, just walnuts, like all the stuff that's good for brain health. And I cut out food that just wasn't serving me, like anything that's processed, I just kind of stopped eating. And I really got into meditation. I got into connecting deeper with myself and journaling, and just understanding like who I am as a person is more than these concussion symptoms. So
Yeah.
I think those would be the places to start for anyone that's kind of going through this, and just be patient with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Understand that this stuff takes time, and don't compare yourself to other people that have been through the journey, because like I said, mine did heal and it happened quite quickly once I actually did rest, but it doesn't mean that your experience is going to be the exact same. It might, it might take longer, but just be patient.
Yeah, that's such an amazing, hopeful message that I know people really appreciate. Almost felt just like a warm hug that you just gave everybody. And I love that so much. And I love what you said about like, do not get so focused on like, when am I going to be my old self? Like, when am I going to feel exactly like me again? And I know for me in my journey, like it was several years going through it. And then I didn't even really remember that old self, but like not in a negative. It was just like, well, this is where I'm at now. So like, how can I live with this now and be accepting and happy in like new self, kind of to like what you're saying.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Yeah, and I feel like this is like weird to say, but what I'm getting from you is almost that you feel maybe like a little bit grateful for your concussions.
Yeah, I do.
Like
I feel grateful for anything that actually allowed me to slow down in life, because there was always this underlying part of me that just didn't feel like I was good enough, and I had to do these things to prove that I was. And so the concussion kind of taught me that that's just not true. And I think, yeah, it's there's always a lesson to learn in life. There's always some sort of silver lining if you're willing to go there, not to take away from anyone's experience, because I do know that while you're in it, it really does suck.
Yeah, and you're like, excuse me, are you guys telling me to be grateful right now? That like every single part of my body hurts at all times?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you have to like, spiritually bypass the pain. But what I am saying is that in the future, there is very much this idea that you could be completely symptom free. Yeah. And it takes a lot of like believing in the process, and yeah, just knowing that it actually can improve.
Is amazing. And when you think about like brain health now, kind of where are you at? What sort of things do you think about?
I think about it as much as I would think about regular health. So, limiting screen time on my phone, that kind of stuff. Just, I think about brain health, like I said, with any sort of thing that I'm doing to my body. If I'm going to eat healthy and stuff, I'm taking that into consideration. So I think brain health feels like it is underrepresented in the scheme of health and wellness. So if you can implement that in your journey at all, I would say it's super, super important. Our brain drives what we do. I don't know why it gets overlooked, because it's such an important part of our bodies. So yeah, definitely make sure that doesn't stay out of your routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an athlete now, I know it's been years, but when you're saying like, oh, I'm like approaching things a little bit differently, maybe a little bit more cautiously, are you like, I'm totally back and feeling?
No,
okay.
I wouldn't say I'm totally back.
Yeah.
I had like a small concussion at the end of 2022. And that one, I actually just knew exactly what to do. I just didn't do anything until I started feeling better.
Like, now I know.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
With my athleticism and stuff, I'm in my 30s now, and things have just changed a lot for me physically in general. So there's, as far as like being a competitive athlete, I'm not a competitive athlete anymore. I've kind of like taken a back seat to that. I'm more a judge and kind of like help in other ways now to shape the sport of parkour. And then with stunts, I'm still very much doing that. But I'm just more conscious of brain health. And so when it comes to doing these stunt gags, like there is a possibility that I could hit my head. And so that's why I kind of do everything possible to make sure that I'm taking care of it in the daily. So I can't always not hit my head. It's literally sometimes kind of part of my job.
Yeah.
So I just make sure that I do everything possible to make sure that my health is good. So that way, if that does happen, then it's okay.
Yeah. And what I'm curious, as you bring up like the stunt, like community and like parkour as a sport, I would have to imagine you're not the only person to ever have a concussion.
Oh, no.
How do you feel like the awareness is in those communities, or like, is there any message that you would have for other athletes that might be going through it?
I feel like people don't talk about it enough, for sure. I don't think people understand how debilitating a concussion can actually be and how it can affect you for the rest of your life. And I've watched people go through the same thing, only like way worse. I had a friend that got knocked out cold for like 2 minutes, and he wasn't able to talk or walk for a couple months, and that was really scary to witness. But he is 100% now. It is crazy. Like the comeback story from that is like unreal.
We need to talk to him.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him your
okay.
yeah. Anyway, so it was amazing to watch him come back from that too, and kind of just how he treats things a little bit different, not even on the side of caution, just more of an awareness, if that makes sense. And then there's also other people in the sport that I've just seen take some really hard hits, and then afterwards they just become more conscientious, you know, like they understand like, oh, maybe I'm not invincible and this is something that I should take seriously. But I think, yeah, just in the general scheme of things, a lot of people don't understand how big of an impact it can truly be.
Yeah, I think that is another thing that we want to get, a message we want to get across on this podcast is like you said, A, debilitating, but then B, it can really change your life.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
you say that feels true for you?
Yeah, I think so. It can be definitely life-changing. I feel like for mine, I'm, you know, very thankful that I was still able to continue doing my sport and I was able to still do my career and all that. But I know people that haven't, like they had to completely change course. So again, sending out a lot of love for those people. But yeah, I mean, it is life-changing. It is something to be taken seriously. And I hope people recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was an amazing interview. I'm so grateful for your time. Any last messages for those who might be, you know, really struggling with post-concussion symptoms right now and listening?
Yeah, to everybody listening, just, you know, believe in it, believe in yourself, believe in the process, and take your time. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to rush anything.
I think that's like a very main core message from what you're saying that I took away from it. It's
Yeah.
like, slow down, everybody. Like, it's okay to slow down. It's going to help you be better in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain is trying to tell you something. Like you said, you're like, your body was like, no, please.
It's just please listen to me.
Yes.
Yeah, no, take your time. It's like what you said earlier. You get into this trance of how do I fix everything? And you're coming from this place of something is wrong with me.
Yes.
Rather than just accepting like, hey, it's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just you just need to rest.
Yeah.
And if you keep focusing on all these things that you can do, it actually overwhelms you to the point where you're not going to be able to get better. So,
Yeah.
you know, all the tools are great, but take your time. Like you don't need to just do absolutely everything. Do one thing at a time and see if it works, and then go from there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Sydney Olson, thank you so much. Lastly, Sydney has her own podcast. Where can people hear more of your story?
Yeah, if you guys are interested in listening to my podcast, it is called Collecting Scars. And if you want to find me on Instagram, just type in @SydneyOlson1.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sydney.
Thank you, Julia.